You're listening to Redefine Her, where we amplify the voices redefining women's health and wellness. From bold innovators to resilient change makers, we uncover the stories, ideas, and breakthroughs shaping a better future for women everywhere. This is your space for inspiration, advocacy, and transformation. Here we go. Let's redefine what's possible.
Definitely there's riding a wave here that women's health is having a moment in the spotlight, and wow, is it much needed. Like 100 years too late, but that's okay. We'll take it and we'll run with it because it's so needed.
Women's health is having a moment. And today's episode of Redefine Her, we sit down with Alice Eweida, CEO of Pandia Health, to talk about what it takes to lead a fast-growing health tech company, build a truly inclusive team, and push the boundaries of precision medicine and women's care. But leadership isn't just about strategy. It's about being vulnerable, showing up authentically, and forging strong partnerships with other founders and CEOs to drive meaningful change.
By being a bit more vulnerable myself. So sharing what I could have done better, what I learned from that in particular. And I think when you show up that way as a leader, it's really easy then for people to copy it and also feel safe and vulnerable, because if you're willing to share, they're going to be willing to share.
From using AI to personalized care to navigating funding challenges in a historically overlooked industry, Alice shares the real behind-the-scenes work of revolutionizing healthcare for women. If you're a founder, investor, healthcare expert, or simply someone passionate about the future of women's wellness, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining Redefine Her today. We're talking with Alice Eweida. She is the CEO of Pandia Health, which includes Pandia Medical Group and Pandia Pharmacy. Pandia is an innovative, high-growth company that is leading the way in personalized women's wellness care. With over 20 years of experience in growth and brand marketing, Alice has worked with global leaders like Google and scaled numerous health tech startups, including Boulder Care and Day 2. Under her leadership, Pandia Health has expanded its service to include AI-driven menopause care, and they are transforming how women access birth control and other essential healthcare needs. It is so great to have you here today.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm thrilled to be here.
Tell us a little bit more about Pandia.
I'd love to. As you mentioned, we are a telemedicine and pharmacy ecosystem for women's hormonal health. We offer precision-matched hormones for birth control, and that allows us to do therapeutic personalization based on a patient's age, BMI, and race as a proxy for genetics, which means that we get women onto the best pill for their biology from the get-go and see really incredible health outcomes from doing that. We also offer menopause care to make sure we're addressing the full spectrum of our hormone need.
I love that. I'm in a phase of my own life where traveling down all of those changes. So it's awesome to have you here today to talk about this. You successfully navigated large enterprises like Sky TV, YouTube, and even a couple of years at Google. Then you made a bold decision to move to the United States and pursue the volatility of startup culture. What really inspired that? What gave you that push for that major life change?
Yeah, I had been working at Google and YouTube for several years, but moved to the US in the last year to work at YouTube. And it was a thrilling ride. There's so many great things about working for a big tech company, and especially such a precious and cherished brand such as Google. But in that last year, I just found myself in a job that I didn't love anymore. And I was at the intersection of two product launches, YouTube Premium, or YouTube Red as it was called back then, the first subscription on YouTube after it had been an advertising platform completely free for about 15 years. And also Google Home, which was the first activated device with a voice assistant built in. And few product launches being at the intersection was just a little more than I really wanted or could enjoy. And I found that I was working 16-hour days. My head would crash on the pillow at like 11 midnight. I'd be up again at 6, taking the shuttle here in Silicon Valley down to the office. And it just wasn't bringing me joy at all. And as all great Silicon Valley stories have a roommate involved, I had a roommate who said, but you really should talk to my friend who's doing a nutrition startup. You love nutrition. I had become a marathon runner. I'd had a traumatic event in my life, and I'd found that running was really therapeutic and meditative for me. And so I got into this journey of running that took me all around the world on this incredible experience. And that's when I started to really pay attention to nutrition. I thought that just eating healthy was a good idea, But like anyone, fell down, had bad habits creeping in. We're only human at the end of the day. And I realized through this running experience that food is power. Nutrition is source that the body needs in order to perform at its best. And I really saw that play out in my running times and show up in so many different ways. And so a light bulb went off, and I knew that I needed to find more meaning in my career and have a better impact in the world. And there were two things that made me a little bit sad. One is that we're all eating all these processed foods that are making us sick. A huge proportion of the population has diabetes, pre-diabetes, obesity. And also we're not doing a great job of treating the planet. But it was the food piece that I could find a real connection to. And so my roommate introduced me to a startup that back in the day was called Zipongo. It's now called Food Smart. They just raised a $200 million growth round and really doing phenomenally well. And so I was proud to have been part of that journey.
That's amazing. How do you think that change and then interweaving your own personal passions redefined your career path?
It changed everything for me. I went from not quite being asleep at the wheel, but kind of that. There were the parts of being in a big organization where the narrow role that you're in doesn't fully fit the way your brain works, and your curiosities and the things that interest you and the discussions that you hear that you'd like to be part of, but no, you stay in your lane because you're in that particular role. And that became exhausting a little bit over time. But doing something that is meaningful, that you're passionate about, that you can wake up every day and be energized for, changes everything. I've learned to work when I can give and to step back when I can't, and, find that balance, because when I can give, I give everything. It helps me do really my best work and wear many hats, as we know startup life can involve.
Most definitely. Which takes me to what inspired you to join Pandia's mission?
I'm so excited for the work that we are doing. And my personal journey that connected me to Pandia is that I started on birth control at the age of 15 when my family doctor prescribed it for acne treatment, very much needed at the time. I was a very hormonal, a teenager that needed some intervention and help. My Catholic mom also thought it was quite advantageous to have her teenage daughter on birth control. So it was the right thing to do at that moment in time. And what happened over literally a lifetime is that I started my family when I was age 42. So I was a little later than average. But what we do know is that women, on average, try to spend about 25 years of their life not getting pregnant. That is an incredible chunk of our lives. And my experience of birth control was very up and down. The side effects are very real, whether it's weight gain, bloating, nausea, vomiting, headaches. We all just suck it up because it's really the only solution available to us. Birth control, in my view, is the thing that supported me finding my life partner, starting my career, being able to study, achieving life goals like buying a house. It really gave me the financial independence that I was looking for. And so when I heard Dr. Yen, our chief medical officer and founder, had found a way to personalize therapeutics for birth control and match them to your individual biology, my eyes lit up, because from a startup perspective, I knew the size of that market is ridiculously large. There are so many women that we can touch and have an immediate impact on, as well as just, helping women, helping the sisterhood. I love my girlfriends. I'm supportive of all women, and I want us to have better lives.
And it makes such a difference. I just got the chills because accessibility and control over family planning and choice around when you want to do this, or if you don't want to do it at all. It's such a critical and fundamental right, having access to birth control. And whether it starts at 15, I was in the same boat for acne, it's a really long time that we are needing to have awareness and just being able to have that within our reach and in our communities. And as you mentioned, we want sisters or women in our lives to keep rising. And it's a very real statement that having a child can impact you in ways that doesn't allow you to do that for a time being.
Absolutely. If you are timing children when it doesn't suit you, it can hold you back economically. We also know that 34% of mothers have their second child earlier than they had planned to or wanted to. So getting back on your birth control can also be really important.
And like so many women, you experience being laid off at one of the most significant crossroads in your life. 8 months pregnant, and not long after, you stepped into a seed stage company, into Pandia, as the CEO. You had a newborn to care for. What was that roller coaster like from both mental and physical? How did you navigate that transition?
It was a wild time, I will tell you that, but also really thrilling. Like so many people read the book Lean In from Sheryl Sandberg over a decade ago. It didn't fully resonate with me at the time, but I realized it really kind of hit me in the face when I needed it. So I had experience being let go from a company at the time when I'd already planned how I was going to use my parental leave, and I had this whole plan in my head. And that just came to dust. And I also had a bit of a challenging start to motherhood, I think, as most moms do. It's a bit of a roller coaster and everything gets turned upside down for a minute. And I really started to miss work, and I felt that I couldn't be my best self if I was just being a present mom 24/7. I wasn't finding enough joy in those early months. So I thought, I got to get back to work. This opportunity came up and I just had this burning desire to lean in and make this the best opportunity of my career. And so far, it's been absolutely fun.
As you said, it turns your whole world upside down. And through the journey of raising our kids, it continues to change. We kind of lose our identity. It's a shock to our ego. Job changes, moving into this new role. All of these things are taxing in ways that we can't always put our thumb on. But for you, fast forward, what was it, just 18 months later, and you were named a top 100 in HealthTech. Did you ever feel a sense of imposter syndrome through that? Tell me more about that experience.
No question. I think we all feel an imposter in some way, no matter what we're doing. And I had started my career in growth marketing and marketing. I'd spent more than a decade just focused on establishing that career. I really loved it. I always say that marketing is my first love. And I was a student of it. I had the great privilege of being on the client side and spending millions of dollars of a marketing budget, also working at the biggest media agencies, as well as running my own campaigns at startups and just like having my hands in the tools. So I really was a student for a long time of marketing. When I switched into health tech, I realized very quickly that I would always be a student of healthcare because the industry is so vast and so complex. And the relationships between employers, payers, providers, innovators, depending on your perspective, depending on what you're trying to achieve, depending on who your partners are, it's entirely different for everyone. And that's kind of exciting and thrilling. There's so much to learn. And I'll definitely always be a student, but getting that credit, let's say, really helped me feel like, I think I am in the right place. I think I can really drive this forward. I think I can see things that others can't see around the type of innovation that we need.
And speaking of that, as a woman and as a leader in this arena, what challenges have you faced? How has that shaped your leadership style and your advocacy for women, for other women?
Hey, in terms of my leadership style first, it's really helped me to lean into active listening. The part where I really figured this out was working for startups and growing teams. In order to do that, you have to really tune in deeply to what your team members need and how you can support them and build them up, whether it's, gaps in education and knowledge, whether it's conflicts within a team, whether it's helping them connect to the leadership's vision and understand where the project that they're working on ladders up to the bigger mission. Or vision. There's just so many aspects of it, of building a small, hungry, ambitious team that I really love, and it energizes me a lot. So finally leaning into active listening was the thing that has helped me be a successful leader. For women, it's just helping them have a voice in the room, I would say, is the extension of that. So I saw when I worked in big tech companies, all too often, women are sat at the back of the room, or if it's a crowded room, the men take the chairs at the front and the women sort of stand awkwardly on the sidelines. And so I saw that play out time and again. And I realized that we need to help women feel heard by asking questions, bringing them into the conversation. Those are some of the obvious elements to it, but also just pulling that sister up, helping them get the promotions and really fighting for them, because often they just get overlooked too many times.
I love that. You shared with me before our conversation your discipline of marathoning, and it's women showing up at the race line. And you talked about doing this Abbott's World Marathon Major Series. That is huge. I was like, oh my gosh, did she go to all of the 6 countries, which I think now there's 7? And compared to men, how many women were involved in that?
Definitely, it was a minority. And I think any kind of performance sports like that, you would typically, it depends on the sport, of course, but in the traditional ones like running, you would find that women are the minority. But it was always thrilling to like find your people. And when you did find great girlfriends in the sisterhood that you could run with, it really lights me up.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Let's talk a little bit more about how you're leading transformative care at Pandia Health. As you've mentioned, really being able to position yourself and other women at the table. Designing patient-centered care requires balancing cutting-edge technology with accessibility and inclusion. Considering some of the things that we've talked about and the overarching, how do you bridge all of these gaps? How is Pandia addressing this challenge?
It's really crucial. So, for example, in our medical group, we have 22 doctors on staff. They are geographically and racially diverse, and we designed it that way to represent the patients that we serve, because I believe cultural inclusivity in our medical system is absolutely crucial, so that everyone feels seen and heard. And so having that discipline in terms of being able to see it first, see the problem, and not every leader in healthcare sees it that way. So first seeing it and then being able to react and adapt to fill those cultural needs, I think is really crucial. And then when it comes to our menopause care line, what we see when there are 70 different symptoms for menopause is that women really need to be seen and heard in their interactions with the doctors, in their interactions with their whole care team, because the path is so personal. Everyone has a very different experience for menopause. Some people will breeze through it and others will have a really hard time. On average, we are struggling with the symptoms of menopause for 7 years, and that is a big chunk.
Seen recently that it is also, in terms of perimenopause, before menopause, that time frame is getting longer.
Right. There's much more awareness and education and research, which is, the piece that really underpins it and is crucial to help us understand what this journey looks like now. And more than ever, women are now being included in research trials. Thank goodness. It's been a long time coming, and we're starting to slowly recognize the problem and take addressable actions from it.
As you mentioned, being seen and heard. If you can resonate with someone, you're probably more likely to take action to help yourself if you see yourself in someone else as well. How do you balance that with cutting edge technology?
We have worked really hard on the technology that we've built. We built our customers' tech stack from the ground up. So quite an expensive endeavor, but so worth it because we're finding such a value in the impact that we're having. We have an asynchronous telemedicine platform for birth control and menopause care that allows patients to fill out their desires and goals on a form. So they simply just writing down, answering some quick questions to share what they need from the service. And it's convenient and easy. And this is really crucial because as women, we have so many roles to play in life. We're working, we're mothers, we might be grandmothers, we're partners, we need to be there for our girlfriends, just all the hats all the time. And just scheduling a doctor's appointment now, when there are so many things being thrown at us in life, is really challenging. So we've moved asynchronously because the convenience just to help women quickly get their birth control figured out, for example, as well as the fact that it is the best way to get honesty from patients. So there's a lot of research now which shows that for certain topics in healthcare, so mental health, sexual health, reproductive health, you are more honest if you're not on a video or a phone call with a doctor, if you're just writing out what you need. And this is really important because often we're asking, when was your last sexual partner? Do you prefer to bleed every month or not bleed every month? These are deeply personal questions. And so finding the right format to help women get the care that they need that is accurate and precise is crucial. Then on top of that, we have a precision EMR. So on the back end, our providers see all the responses that patients provide, and we color code them to help the provider quickly and easily prescribe to the highest levels of safety and get that precision.
That is incredible. How do people access this? How are you guys getting this to the marketplace?
We started originally as a direct consumer company, so you can still go to our website and find care there. But we learned over time that we needed to shift a little bit in terms of how we were really growing and scaling. So we found that investors, particularly post-pandemic, have been very cautious about direct consumer healthcare business models. And they often see them as a money pit with difficulty getting the returns that they're looking for. And we also saw that we could just have a greater impact and scale much faster by partnering with others in the healthcare ecosystem. And so now we partner with medical groups, we're looking to get into hospital systems, but essentially anywhere that a doctor or a provider is prescribing birth control, we have a role to play because we can help them prescribe with much better health outcomes. What we found in our program was quite radical. When we check in with a patient at 10 weeks to see how they're doing on the birth control pill that we prescribe, 93% of them say that I'm good, this pill works for me, let's carry on. And that is really unheard of. What we typically see is that about 33% of patients who are new to the birth control pill are still on it at 1 year, which is very low. Just 1 in 3 women who start on the birth control pill stay on it. And we know that's because there are lots of side effects that make it really difficult and challenging. Plus, the healthcare industry doesn't make it easy for us. We show up at the pharmacy. The insurance company says, sorry, come back tomorrow. We're not ready to fill it yet. So there's just so many barriers. What we found when we make it convenient online is that you can get that up to about 55% retaining at 1 year. But with the precision matched approach that we offer, we've got it up to 82%. So we've really seen a significant shift in health outcomes.
That is amazing. Through this precision matching, then that determines what would be the best option for them in terms of choice, pill, ring, whatever it might be. So you did say that that was actually one of the biggest challenges, moving from a DTC model, direct to consumer, to the B2B2C model. Tell me a bit more about that challenge and what lessons did you take away from that?
Yeah, we're never fully through anything. So it's certainly been one of the biggest career challenges that I've taken on. We are very blessed to have Dr. Yen, our Chief Medical Officer, on the team. She's one of our original co-founders. And not only she's a rock star and celebrated doctor, but she also went to some of the best schools in the country. And not yesterday, luckily for us, almost 30 years ago, which means that her peers are now running very large healthcare businesses, and she has the most incredible network. And so it's been surprisingly simple and impactful to have her reach out to some folks in her network and get conversations going. That's helped us very quickly figure out what types of partners are a good fit for us, as well as one thing that's really excited me is how strong our pipeline is. We're just about 6 months into this journey, and so far nobody has yet fallen out of our pipeline. So we've had one organization say now's not the right time, later in the year might be better, but I've never seen a pipeline like that. So that's really shown me how much value we can bring to other organizations.
Most definitely. And I think it goes back to both Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, but also that community piece. Like we have these communities, we have amazing people, women in our communities that asking for some help. What do I do? We can't be afraid to do that, to put ourselves out there and be a little vulnerable. You might get a no, but you also might get a yes.
Yes, exactly. And I have had to lean into my vulnerability a lot, and it really does pay off. I can testify to that.
Awesome. You mentioned storytelling, and of course, storytelling through data just makes sense. And you've shared several statistics, even in our conversation today, but it's an approach that not everyone excels at. How have you used it to really build cohesive teams and foster inclusion when it comes to a high growth environment and major transformations and trying to expand in this market where the need obviously is critical?
I can give you a great example of this. When I joined the business, we were a telemedicine platform and a pharmacy for birth control delivery. Pretty simple and straightforward stuff. We had been operating that way for about 7 years, and Dr. Yen had developed an algorithm that allowed us to personalize care in this precise way. But we weren't talking about it at all. If you went to our website a couple of years ago, you would have just had a very different experience, let's say. And it was becoming a crowded market as well to boot. So it was very clear to me from my branding background that we needed to change our messaging and lean into personalization, as has been the trend in health tech for some time. So we did that, but I didn't feel comfortable making it the core of our brand story unless we were sure that we were having a positive impact from the way that we were prescribing. And so I chatted with the team about it. And I said, we really got to figure this out. What is our algorithm doing? And you can't also talk about algorithms to consumers because there are some negative associations with it. It doesn't mean anything to us. We don't understand it. And so we had to find another way of talking about it if it was the right thing to do.
My yoga teacher says, if you confuse them, you lose them.
Oh, right. I love that. So thankfully hasn't lost anyone yet, I don't think, but still there's a lot that we can learn and grow from. And what we did was, I reached out to my network at Google and said, look, hey, we need to find an analyst to crunch all of the data that we've been sat on for years to figure out, is this algorithm better than the standard of care is? We had a good sense from our retention data, but we couldn't be absolutely sure. So I found a rockstar analyst, we crunched the data, and what we found is that we're having a positive impact on all common side effects from birth control. So whether that's nausea, irregular bleeding, vomiting, headaches, etc., we have had a significant reduction in those outcomes. And so that told me we are really onto something here. Let's lean into this full force. And that's when we started developing our precision matching approach in our messaging as well as in our care model.
And how would you say you incorporate that into growing Pandia, bringing people on board?
Well, that's actually been the foundation of leaning into growing through B2B partners. And so what that has allowed us to do is develop a sales team, which we're just getting started with, as well as figuring out other roles within the care delivery model and our B2B marketing team as well. So it's literally enabled a whole set of new departments within our organization.
When you see something that works, as you mentioned, we're having this huge impact on people. It is, how do we accelerate that message and get people behind it? Because it's so valuable, and be authentic about it still, because we all have someone in our life who is impacted by this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leading a company through rapid growth and change requires more than strategy. It demands a culture, really, that can evolve and thrive through that. Do you have a pinpoint moment when you had to reshape your team's mindset or dynamics to align with a bigger vision?
We've had to get really good at developing an understanding of our sales approach because we haven't really done sales before. We did marketing. We found consumers online. That's how we were previously growing. And so we've had to start building out a really great sales culture within our organization. And I've just taken it back to kind of first principle basics. And at the end of every sales call, we do a debrief. What do we think went well about that call? What do we think could have gone better? What did we learn as a team? And just developing that cultural growth mindset. And then the other way that I try to do that is just by being a bit more vulnerable myself. So sharing what I could have done better, what I learned from that in particular. And I think when you show up that way as a leader, it's really easy then for people to copy it and also feel safe and vulnerable, because if you're willing to share, they're going to be willing to share.
Yes, I think if you're really talking about and involving yourself in the things that you're passionate about, it comes out in the work that you do. And being vulnerable, and we all mess up. We all have a downside. We all have a moment of, oh my gosh, not doing this right. And when you have those people in your network too, that you're just fully leaning in, you can really see the beauty of what can happen on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get a lot of that energy and sharing and sort of commitment to vulnerability from other startup founders and CEOs who really work at this every single day in order to do innovative work.
Most definitely. And you talked about that partnership model when you are looking at partners. How do you assess for that values alignment?
What we have found lately is innovative organizations who are wanting to set up a women's health program. So definitely there's riding a wave here that women's health is having a moment in the spotlight. And wow, is it much needed? 100 years too late, but that's okay. We'll take it and we'll run with it because it's so needed. And so that's one of the ways that we're finding cultural alignment is if we know that they are just starting out with a women's health program, then they've got it. They understand that there's more work to be done here, that their care delivery model does need to show women some real love and attention for how, our bodies react differently to care and medications. And then the second part is we just have great chemistry meetings. I mean, we are talking about some of the most intimate areas of women's care. And so when we have, whether it's an investor or a partner showing up and saying, I just went through menopause with my wife and I'm totally a champion and a supporter because it is hard, then we know we're having the right conversations and that this can flow.
Totally. Just these mutual life experiences. Again, and we all have them. It is all there. And we're 100 years behind the times. Here we are. All about funding when it comes to that. I mean, yes, women's health is having its moment in the spotlight, and it's great, and it is so beyond needed, but there's still major funding issues. What innovative approaches are you and your partners doing to secure capital for women's health initiatives like this?
We know that women's health is severely underfunded. And not only that, but what we see in particularly the VC world when it comes to investor dollars is that female founded teams only get about 3% of VC dollars. And it's even less. It's about 2% for women of color founded teams. And it's just completely alarming, let's say, that this is the state of the world. And so the way that we have managed to sort of navigate around that, we have some fantastic VC partners on board who are forward thinking and totally awesome. Shout out to Precursor Ventures. But what we also see is you have to be very creative if you want to keep growing your business, you know, in ways that don't necessarily fit the VC model. So angel investors, particularly, there are more dollars being moved by women now than ever before. I don't have all the right stats around this, but essentially a lot of older gentlemen are leaving their fortunes to their wives and female partners in their lives. And so that's how, you know, the funds are starting to be redistributed and will continue to be that way for the next 30 years. So female angel investors can get you a really long way and it's highly recommended. We have just taken on some new capital from a group called Women Moving Millions, fantastic group, where every woman in that organization is committed to investing $1 million within 1 year to impact organizations. So groups like that are so awesome.
I love that. My girlfriend and I, the other day, we were just having conversations of, you know, what can we do in times like this? And a lot of it is just taking actions. And one of our ideas in our own community is gathering our friends and everyone contributing, even if it's a little bit, whatever you can, to see such a huge movement behind that with Women Moving Millions. It's just so needed. And I extend my gratitude towards all of these big players that are doing it, that do have that money, because we need it. As you mentioned, 3% is so nominal compared to what is out there. Alarming is a good word, but I'm sure we could come up with several others. What advice would you give to other women leaders who are pitching in male-dominated spaces? I mean, even when you look at capital and fundraising, a lot of VCs are still male-dominated. What is your advice?
One thing that I've seen be really effective is to always speak to the person rather than the role. And so if you are speaking to a male VC, they are a person. They are somebody's husband. They are somebody's son. They might be somebody's brother. They might have sisters. And so try to tap into how to connect to things in their personal experience that touch upon the problem that you're trying to solve with your business when you're raising money. That's the single most effective way that I have been able to unlock conversations in unexpected ways.
That's brilliant and humanizing. Looking at long-term for Pandia Health, what legacy do you hope to leave?
I honestly, like everyone, feel like I'm still writing the story. So it's a little bit hard to judge that at this time. But really and truly, what we're setting out to do is to make women's lives easier and better. We all have so many things that we are dealing with in life. And as women, there's always a little bit extra on top. And when I was a younger woman, I realized that I had to show up and be as awesome as the guys, but also look beautiful and not offend any of the guys in the room. That was just the reality of it. Today, I show up as, you know, a mom, somebody whose parents are aging, all these pressures in our personal life, as well as trying to lead a business forward. And so I can really, really deeply connect to how we need to make women's lives easier and better. And let's not forget the vulnerable women out there who are not as fortunate as some of us listening and tuning in and having the conversation today.
Most definitely. And that actually does bring me to our current administration recently eliminated the reproductiverights.gov website. what would you share for women navigating how to prevent painful periods, how to do family planning, how to manage all of these symptoms? How can they access Pandia Health? And I think you also addressed hormonally.org. How are you guys serving up a solution to this elimination of a major model of information?
Yeah, it has been a little bit shocking to see sources of funding being shut off just in the last few days, as well as really crucial educational resources being taken away. When the government fails us, that's when the innovation really happens. That's when we have to, truly step in and find other ways around the system. Hormonally.org is a fantastic educational resource. You should definitely check it out and you'll be amazed at how beautiful it is as well. And then we offer care every day. You can definitely visit pandiahealth.com. Our services for birth control start as low as $35. That's not even a month, that is a year. So for a 12-month supply of medication, we really try to be affordable and accessible. And lean into the sisterhood. Your friends, your mom, your sisters all have great advice. Find out what they are doing, because when we talk to each other and when we connect as a community, great things do happen.
Beautiful. I love that. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate so much what you've shared and what you and Dr. Yen and your team are doing. Yoga has been a staple for me in my own entrepreneurial journey. What do you do to take care of yourself? Mentally, physically, emotionally, as we navigate the story, as we're traversing the sandwich generation and taking care of kids and parents. What are you doing to tap into your own wellness?
So important for all of us to have our techniques available to us every day. My thing is walking. I like fresh air. I like to let my mind run. If I've got to write an important email to somebody or write a presentation, I'll try and step out for some fresh air to just really think through and help me get a little further in the creative process. I also love to, if I can, do the same thing between dropping my kid at daycare and starting my work day, because that just helps me take a breather and just try and get in the right mindset.
Awesome. That is a beautiful suggestion too. Our last guest left this question for you. How do you balance it all? And what would you share to an ambitious woman listening to this, managing the demands of work and health and relationships and life goals? What advice would you share with them?
I love so much the way that your guests leave a question for the next guest. Such a great way to do things so that we can all keep learning from each other. I would certainly say balance is that thing that we're all desperate to find, but I don't think anyone truly has it. So certainly we can help shift things in a better direction. I am a big fan of ruthless prioritization. And, sometimes that happens within 5 minutes, I got to start the dinner and figure out how to fold the laundry before I needed for the next thing. So I definitely think we're all juggling it all of the time. That relationship and people are the things that really help you through life. And so having the right people around you has been crucial for me.
I really, again, just appreciate you being here today, Alice. And I am even more inspired by the work you are doing. Can't wait to see what comes next. Are there any topics that you'd like to cover that we didn't?
I've been so grateful for, everything that you've helped us go deeper on. I will just share a little bit about the research that we're doing at Pandia Health. We use today in our care model race as a proxy for genetics. But we believe that we can do a better job of precision matching hormones at the genetic level. And so we've started enrolling our patients in a research study to combine their genetics with machine learning and outcomes for birth control pills. We think it could be the first discovery platform for pharmaceutical companies to leverage in the future. And there's definitely a role for us doing that in menopause. We started in birth control, and it's the thing we have gone deep on for years. And so that's where we started our research study. But we're really excited about the future of genetics and hormonal.
That is amazing. So how are you doing that with AI and machine learning? Because there's nothing out there like that for menopause.
That is right. And we're just starting to understand how to track our hormones, but we certainly haven't figured out how to connect them to genetics. And I think because of the way we metabolize medications, that really changes how medications fit with a person's biology. Dr. Yen likes to say that placebo works 30% of the time. Isn't that wild that placebo works 30% of the time? But it also says that's how bad our medications are. they kind of suck. They're so one size fits all. And we need to do a better job of personalizing therapeutics and drug discovery in the future. It's really needed.
Do you have a time frame on all of this coming to fruition?
I don't want to put any timing on it yet. It will probably be a multi-year project for us, but excited for where it's heading.
I am so glad we brought that out at the end here because it is so important. I think as we're looking at men passing on and leaving their inheritance to their wives, well, the same thing is happening in the workforce. People are leaving the workforce and more women are stepping into the workforce and we're living longer. And so taking care of ourselves in ways that maybe we haven't had the information or access to previously, but to do that in a way that is for me or for you, it's just individualized. It's not like everybody else because everything, it's not a one size fits all. And one size fits all does not work.
That is so right. I learned this when I worked for Day 2, which has the world's largest database of gut microbiome data, that the microbes in our gut, the sort of profile of that is more personal than a fingerprint. And so that tells you just how unique our bodies are. And so medicine really now needs to catch up and get there.
Hats off to Dr. Yen and to yourself and to the work you guys are doing. I can't wait to see what develops and what is to come. And I would love to continue the conversation again and go deeper into menopause care. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you guys for being of service to women.
It's been such a pleasure.
That's a wrap on this powerful conversation with Alice Eweida, CEO of Pandia Health. We've explored the future of women's healthcare, the power of technology and AI-driven personalization, and the critical role of leadership, funding, and advocacy in breaking down barriers. Alice's journey is a testament to what's possible when innovation meets purpose and why we need to keep pushing for change in women's health. Pandia Health has offered a generous discount on birth control consultations. Visit pandiahealth.com/birth control treatment and access the discount code in our show notes. If this episode resonated with you, share it with your network, leave us a review, and let's continue the conversation. Together, we can redefine healthcare and build a future where our sisters, our aunts, our mothers, and our best gal pals' wellness is finally a priority. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe here or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. And be sure to share, like, and leave a review. Together, let's continue to redefine what's possible in women's health and wellness. Until next time, stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep redefining her. This episode of Redefine Her is produced by Taryn Long and Brenda Armstrong and proudly sponsored by Idiom Talent Partners, experts in search and placement services for health tech and femtech companies focused on building dynamic, inclusive teams. Learn more at idiomtalent.com.